let's get into the game. So the game stopped by the I Am Athlete podcast. Shout out to them. And we talked about this on the previous podcast episode where Game talked about him being upset about finally admitted that his feelings were hurt that he wasn't on the Super Bowl. But I want to talk about this part that he said, because actually two parts that he said. One of them is he has more classics than 50 Cent.
Bless me.
What do you first? Let me see what you think about that, and then I'm gonna play this clip.
That's not true.
Why is that?
If we take off the records you do with 50, like you have one blood.
You talking albums or are we just talking singles?
Yeah, what are we talking songs, singles, or album?
I'm talking
in general, yeah. Like
I'm talking albums.
That's
what Game was talking about.
That's not true, man. First album, to me, it's a classic, 100%. It's a fantastic album. Same with the second one. It's a really great album. But after that, man, come on, man. Like you don't have no classics. You have no big hits, nothing.
All right. Let's play.
Isn't it true though?
Let's play the clip.
That 50 came in and like wrote the documentary. Like, well, we know that's not true because I have more classic albums than him. And then, but what he did,
You can't help himself.
no, it's not petty. How can it be petty if it's a fact?
Because
you don't have to throw it out there, though. Like 50 had Get Rich or Die Trying. We all know that the album, like the magnitude of the album was dope at that time in hip hop, and he was a force. And then he had I think the second one was like The Massacre or something like that. Yes. And that was a pretty decent album.
Like
but
that.
really on some real hip hop, 50 had one classic album, like one. Get Rich or Die Trying. Amazing. Me, I've had several, and I'm still here, right?
Stop.
So first, the way he dismisses The Massacre, he's like, man, what was that second album, The Massacre?
Yeah, like get the fuck out of here.
Like, bro, that was when you dropped your fucking album.
Yeah.
You know what The Massacre was? It was the documentary. That's really what The Massacre was.
Yeah.
50 took Hate It or Love It, How We Do, and those other records, West Side Story, took them off The Massacre and gave them to you. That's what The Massacre was. It's the documentary.
And that's what we were saying. Imagine if you would have kept those records.
The Massacre would have been bigger than Give Rich or Die Trying, easily.
100%.
1,000,000%.
It would have sold 2.5 million first week.
I'm not even questioning that. That would have been the biggest. That probably would have been the most hits an album has ever had. You probably would have had 4 or 5 number one hits off that album. Hate It or Love and How We Do, both number one. Candy Shop went number one. And what else was the other record? Just a little bit, I think.
Just a little bit, yeah.
So 4, you would have 4 number one, potentially 5 if you would have got Disco Inferno probably pushing, because the buzz would have been even higher. 5 number one records on one album.
Wasn't PIMP?
No, I was on Give Rich or Die Trying, man.
Yeah.
So 50, here's the thing. Game said, here's what the Game said. That's not true that 50 wrote for me. Nobody's saying he wrote your whole fucking album. What 50's always said is he gave you records that he's already. Here's the thing, and I wish this would come out because it would prove that 50's right and that Game is just talking out of his ass. Somebody, maybe DJ Who could, if we can finally get him to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody needs to leak those reference tracks. Remember how the Drake reference tracks leaked with Quentin Miller? He was writing those records for Drake, and then the reference tracks leaked.
Right,
and then people were like, oh, Quentin Miller's writing for him. Those 50 Cent reference tracks with Hate It or Love and How We Do needs to leak.
Mm-hmm.
That means 50's on every single verse and no Game on that track. That's the original track. The original track was just 50 Cent. No Game at all. It was 50 on Hate It or Love It all over. So 50 muted his verses, muted part of his hooks to let Game come into the track and do his thing. So that was a 50 Cent track, 100%.
But the thing is, we don't know if it would have been that big, as big as it was.
I think it would have, man. A hit is a hit. The
think,
sample was there.
Yeah, I think it would have been a huge record, but not as big.
How We Do would have gone off 1 million. That club record is 50. 50 would have nailed that.
Yeah.
Hate It or Love It, you could debate. Okay, maybe.
Because probably 50 would have put a different artist in there, like somebody else or something.
Nah, 50 never worked with other people, so I doubt he would have put anybody on that bitch. It
was
was
I'm saying like a G-Unit artist, maybe, or something.
Maybe.
Like maybe Banks would have in there. Dubs and 22s coming around, Cruise.
But 50 had those as originally his singles. I wish those reference tracks were leaked. Imagine hearing the original Higher Here to Love and
Yeah,
How We
I'm
Do.
surprised that hasn't happened.
Maybe they just cleared it out and never saved them. You know, that happens sometimes.
Yeah, true.
But imagine if those reference tracks leaked, Game would have to shut up because at that point it's proof that 50 gave you those records.
Mhm.
So he goes in on that. He says, 50 never wrote documentary for me. That's not true. And then he says, oh, I got more. It's not true because I got more classics than 50.
I feel like Game really kind of in a way hates that album, the first one.
Yeah, he always says I think my second album is my best album. That's what he says.
And I don't blame him for that. Why he says that too? Because he did do all that shit on his own, that album. Man.
No, I'm
Like you have to
making
give him props. Like he was in a lot.
That's
of
why
good
I'm making
shit,
a documentary on that album.
Yeah, and he made a great album.
No,
the album was very good.
I give him props.
Yeah,
He had to go up against Jimmy Iovine, 50, all that Interscope. They put him on a sister label, all that. I give him props for
he
that.
was going through hell.
My point, though, is you can't just shit on 50 and say you have more classics than him because you just don't like the fact that, people are saying your first album is written by 50 and that it's, let's be honest here. In your career, let's just say you're a rapper. Would you have a classic like Get Rich or Die Trying, or would you have a classic like the documentary? I think most people, if you were to ask that question, would say Get Rich or Die Trying.
Yeah, for
They
sure.
would not say the documentary.
Mm.
So that's the first thing. So there you go. Knock it out. 50 has a better classic than you. Then you go to the second album. Would you want The Massacre or Doctor's Advocate? That's where the
A lot of
debate
people
comes
say-
in.
Yeah, a lot of people say probably Massacre. I think
Some people would-
worldwide.
So yeah,
Like the United States,
So-
worldwide.
even if you have the next albums aren't classic. LAX was a good album, but it's not a classic. Red Album was a good album.
Or just even
It's not a classic.
yeah, or just even put Curtis with his next album.
Okay, so
Curtis.
LAX and Curtis.
It's Curtis, huh? All day. He had.
I like
Technology.
LAX a lot.
You think it was better than the Curtis though? Like you
the LAX?
forget about being fans of 50 and blah blah blah. Just like
Is it better than Curtis? I mean, My Life is one of those records. Game's Pain with Keisha Cole was one of the records I really love.
yeah.
He's had records on there. I can't remember all of them because I haven't bumped in a while. But
I would say those two albums, them going together is really
yeah,
kind of
I
evenly
really.
matched. But I feel like 50's hits reached out further.
Of course,
because
Curtis was a bigger album. It was a way
yeah,
bigger album
yeah.
than Games. But then you do fourth album, Red Album, Before I Self-Destruct. I like the Red Album a lot. I actually
Yeah.
sometimes I consider his Red Album one of the best albums that he's had.
Yeah,
I
that
really
that
like the Red
album.
Album.
He just I feel like his
And Boys Put the Speakers on
yeah.
blast. Like he's got
yeah
records.
he
on that
went
album.
hard on that.
Martians versus Goblin with Tyler the Creator. Yeah, Red Nation with Lil Wayne. That was another
Yeah,
record.
That was a pretty good album.
I was actually bumping that fairly recently. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Before I Self-Destruct and Red, then you can kind of put those together and compare.
Well, but Before I So Struck was not
It was a
really
great
good.
album, but
it was a good album.
I
It
feel
wasn't
like 50 missed the mark on Curtis and Before I Self-Destruct. He could have done something way great with those two albums and missed it. Before I Self-Destruct, that title should have been him reflected on Hollywood like Eminem did with the Eminem Show. That should have been a title where he's like, he wants to get out of this. That's what the title seems like, Before I Self-Destruct. When you think of that title, you think of Hollywood, the pressure of how all these people go crazy, and that's how he's explaining the album. 50 should have been on that album and kind of more personal about his life and how the fame affected him, how it affected his family, how it affected people around him, all that shit. People wanted money, his baby mama. You know the song, They Burned Me? That song
Yeah.
explains that. That's what I feel like that album should have been that, but he failed on that. It was more about guns, this, that, and we get it. That was a miss on that album. There's artists that have misses and 50
Yeah.
missed. Curtis could have been another personal album. You name an album, Curtis, which is your first name. 50 said
Yeah.
it's supposed to be personal. It really wasn't.
I think
This-
that Kanye West kind of fucked him up with that. I feel
No,
like.
I mean, just
Yeah.
50's execution was bad on that album, too. He had that song, Smile. He put that as a bonus track. That's the most personal and best track, I think, on the album.
That shit goes
Smile, I'm leaving. That record was fire, and it was never on the album. So 50 missed on those two. I'm not really a big fan of Animal Ambition. It's all right. But that's my
I
point
like
is
Animal Ambition.
it's all right. The artists miss on albums. We're going to be talking about that later on.
Right,
Drake
right.
missing on albums. It happens. But have more class to 50 games. Sorry. If you were here and said that to me, I would burst out laughing. See this water arrow, spit it. That's how much I feel. I'm being 100% honest. You can't just say those people are just, the people on there are just keeping quiet because they're laughing deep down because Game does not have more classics.
But Game is definitely a better rapper.
The 50, yeah. Bar for
100%.
bar.
But so like a songwriter,
Speaking of bar for bar,
50
Kid Kid
can
raps
fucking
better.
rap.
I think Kid Kid raps just as good, if not better, than Game. And I know people saw that clip and were like, "You guys are trolling." I am 1,000,000% not trolling. I 100% believe you put Kid versus the Game bar for bar. I'm not talking about hit records. I'm not talking about status of how big you are as an artist. Game obviously has more album sales, more hit records, all that
That's
shit.
what people were taking it.
Yeah.
Like,
Bar for bar. You strip all that down and you just take him bar for bar. Kid can compete with Game. If not, compete with him, beat him. That's the way I see it.
and if you don't believe us, go listen to Kid
Yeah,
Kid's
go listen to
records.
bars.
Listen bar for bar. Listen to his shit. That
He's
boy
got
goes
bars, man.
in.
Yeah, he's got bars.
He
So,
can shred you up like a slut. Shoe, like a cabbage. You just cut.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
we 100%, I 100% wholeheartedly believe that. People are saying we're trolling. I was not trolling at all. But yeah, Game, you do not have more classics than 50. Even if you do, you'll never have as big of a classic as Get Rich by Trying ever in your career. If Drillmatic drops right now and does 500,000 first week, and all these reviews, it will not be what Get Rich
He
by
better
Trying
not
is.
disappoint us with the Drillmatic.
All this hype, yeah.
All this hype, all this best album out. The best,
I'm
the
excited.
Best, the
I can't
best.
wait.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm really excited for this album. Like, because he's saying a lot of shit, you know, and his confidence is a whole nother level with this album. So, and he's got some dope ass features.
He's got a chip on his
NBA
shoulder.
Youngboy.
He's got a chip on his shoulder.
Ace.
That's the thing. He's got a chip on his shoulder. He's mad about the Super Bowl thing. He's mad about the Rolling Stone list. He's mad about all these artists that left him out of the top 100 rappers list, top 50 rappers, top 20. He's taken all that and he's put it into one album, which is good. That creates great music. So I'm excited for the album. I want to see what it's about.
I think he's gonna go bar for bar on the album like insane.
And he's gonna diss some people. I know,
Because he calls
1,000,000%. He's
Drillmatic.
probably gonna
He's
diss
gonna
Eminem.
drill.
Yeah, so it's probably gonna diss Eminem a few times
Yeah,
too.
he's gonna be like, Eminem, you ain't shit. You come to my. I don't know.